everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hey girl, hey, welcome. Okay, I am Brittany Christina of the Brittany Christina collection. I am a luxury women's wear designer based in Maryland, and this channel focuses on luxury, fashion, and entrepreneurship. So if you are interested in any of those things, be sure to hit that subscribe button because you are in for a treat this year. So today's video, I thought it would be good to kick off the year by sharing 10 things I wish I knew before pursuing fashion design. Okay, I went to school for business. I learned how to sew when I was 8, right? So I have been sewing for such a long time, and I decided to go to college to get a business degree versus studying fashion design because to me, having business knowledge is so important, and fashion was something that I had always planned to pursue on the side and, you know, can perfect my skill set essentially. So I have been in the industry for over 10 years. It's almost close to 15 at this point, and there has been so much that I've learned. I started my first brand, Dynasty by Brittany, when I was a freshman in college back in 2013. So I have so much knowledge, okay? And I just thought it would be interesting to kind of share some of the challenges that I faced, because later this year, as I continue to do videos, I am going to be sharing how I've overcome some of those challenges. That way you don't have to run into the same issue, okay? So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so the first thing that I wish I knew before pursuing fashion design or becoming a fashion designer is that burnout is real, okay? Because I have been sewing for such a long time, I have a tendency, number one, I work very well under pressure, okay? But because I work well under pressure, I tend to lean into that a little bit more than I should, and I wait till the last minute to kind of start working on customer orders. Just to kind of give you guys further background, everything I do within my business, I am the one behind the sewing machine, sewing it myself, okay? So when you start out that way, it's a lot, and being able to manage your time is so important, okay? But over the past, I haven't even sewed in a year. I have not touched a sewing machine in a year, and burnout was the reason, okay? I crashed and burned, y'all, and I haven't been sewing in a whole year. It's crazy. So I'm trying to slowly get back into it. But the reason for that burnout is it got to a point where I just had a lot of clients, which is good. That's the goal. But I needed to build my team, and building a team is just a whole challenge in itself. So I think if I had knew that this was a challenge that I would have ran into, I would have set my business up differently so that it wouldn't just be me, you know what I mean? So that I can really feel comfortable growing and scaling. It is very difficult to do that when you are a solo person, okay? But needless to say, if you are a designer, try not to do things last minute, right? Even if you have the skill set to, I can knock out a dress in less than 24 hours, but that does not mean that I should do that, okay? It does not mean that I should do that every single time I have a client. So that's just one thing that I wish I would have done differently. The second thing I wish I knew before becoming a fashion designer is that it is very difficult to scale your business, okay? Again, this is because most fashion designers start off with just them, right? It's just you behind the sewing machine. You are the one producing orders, okay? In order to scale, in order to grow, in order to have the capacity to take on more orders and therefore get more money, you need more people. And the thing is, it's just hard to kind of transition doing everything yourself to building a team. It's not an easy transition. And that's why manufacturing is really important, but that's also like a learning curve for, especially for designers who have never gone into manufacturing. So that's just one thing that I learned. And I feel like if and there's different ways to kind of run your business as a designer. I think for me, I realized that I don't want to be behind a sewing machine my entire life, and that is why I have not touched a sewing machine. And well, it's part of the reason, okay? But I just realized how I was running my business was not conducive to my lifestyle and how I really saw myself, right? I feel like I am very much business minded, and I want to be the one designing my designs, but then outsourcing it and sending it to my team so they can actually create it. I don't want to create it. And I realized that, and that's okay. Everybody kind of goes through these growing pains, but that's just one of the things that I kind of ran into most recently, is that it's just very difficult to scale when you are one of one, physically creating and sewing all of these pieces. So that is something that I am currently working on to get myself out of, so that I don't have to feel burnt out. So another thing I wish I knew before becoming a designer and starting my own business is how expensive it is, okay? It's very expensive to, honestly, it's expensive to produce clothing. But it's more expensive when you're producing collections. When I started my business my freshman year of college, like the only thing that I knew about how to be a fashion designer was, oh, fashion designers, they do fashion shows. In order to do fashion shows, you have to create a collection. And based on what I saw in the industry, you know, you had these brands that will put out like minimum like 20-piece collections. I mean, some do as many as like 100, if not more. But you know what I mean? So that's how I'm structuring, me not knowing any better. That's how I'm structuring my business, how I'm structuring my brand. Whenever I did a fashion show, I would do no less than 20 pieces because that's what I saw, that's what I thought you were supposed to do. But to create a 20-piece collection, and especially when I tried to transition into the luxury space, I mean, fabric is just expensive, right? It's not just fabric. It's also, I mean, to do a lot of fashion shows, you have to pay money to participate. Even if you are an emerging designer, like it's not free to do a fashion show, right? So you had to participate in fashion shows. I mean, to buy machines, right? But also don't let your machine not work anymore, okay? I remember I tried to go get my machine fixed. It was something so small. I'm pretty sure if I wanted to do it hard that bad enough, like I could have done it myself, but it was something so small. I went to, you have to go to these like specialty places to get your machine looked at, and they charge, I mean, the price to repair a sewing machine, you might as well just buy a new one. So at this point, I have like, I probably have like 5 sewing machines because I am not about to pay hundreds of dollars to fix one little piece. Like I might as well just buy a brand new one. So, I mean, there's so much that goes into a designer, but I think the biggest thing is purchasing fabric. I remember I did my taxes one year and I was doing my expenses. I saved all my receipts, okay? And I added everything up, and within 1 year's time, I spent $5,000 on fabric alone. That's it, like just on fabric, not anything else, just fabric, $5,000. And I was like, $5,000 where? Because I definitely did not make that money back. So I was just like, oh no, we gotta change how we do things. So that, I'm gonna talk about that a little bit more in later points and also in later videos, but I think that's just one of the things I didn't think about when I started, is just how expensive it is to actually start up your business and start up the collection. However, if you do it the right way, you don't have to spend money. See, but I know that now. So the next thing I learned, and this is speaking of doing things the right way, is operations, okay? I think this is something that a lot of people struggle with if you're a designer, even if you're, well, not so much boutique owner, but we're talking about designers in this video, okay? So operations, right? how do you start a clothing brand? What is the most efficient and cost-effective way to start a clothing brand? Okay, there's a formula, okay, and there's certain methods that you can use to, I'm gonna just say this, there is a right way to launch the brand, okay, in which you are spending less money. And so I'm gonna do a whole video on what are those ways that you can launch the brand. But I think the biggest thing is, as a designer, is you wanna make sure that when you launch with the least amount of inventory as possible. And it's crazy because that is the opposite of what I thought you were supposed to do. Like, obviously, in order to sell product, you think that you would need inventory, but there's a way to sell your product and not have like physical inventory, right? Get the money in advance and then use that money from the purchases that you made to then fund the production of your collection, okay? Do not go and produce your collection first and then hope that people buy it. That is not the way to go. I cannot stress that enough. That is not what you're supposed to do. Do not buy inventory, or do not make inventory and hope people buy it. It's not gonna work, because you're just gonna be stuck with stuff that you can't sell, especially if you don't have your marketing strategy, a launch strategy. If you don't have all the pieces that you need, you're gonna be stuck, and you don't want to be stuck, sis, okay? Trust me, you don't want to be stuck. So that is another thing. I just wish I knew how to properly operate my business as a designer. I feel like a lot of people tend to be more creative and focus on the garments and the design of the garments, but like having that business acumen and knowing how to actually structure your business so that you can sell, make a profit, make money, and scale, like that is so important. It's so important, and it is something that a lot of designers miss. So operations actually leads me to my next point, which is how to properly market your business, okay? I wish I knew day one what a proper launch strategy looks like for when I do launch a new collection. I cannot tell you guys how many, I probably launched like honestly 10 or 12 collections since I've started sewing in general, since I started my business, right? And every single collection, it's like I would make it, I would spend money on photo shoots, on models, on styling, all this other stuff, output all this money to post on Instagram, and it would be like crickets. I wouldn't, people weren't really engaging with my posts. Like nobody was buying. Like my money for my business has always been through custom. Like I had never really had success with a collection, and I always like what's up? Like why are people not supporting whatever? I'm trying to tell y'all what I did wrong, okay? But I think like that's the biggest thing, is I did not know what a proper launch strategy was, okay? Posting on Instagram is not a marketing strategy. It's not. You cannot be successful alone just by posting on Instagram. Now there's a difference. If you have engaging followers and your followers are your target audience and they are obsessed with you and everything that you do and they support you nonstop, okay, cool. But like everybody don't got that, you know what I mean? So you have to do more. You have to develop a 360 marketing plan. And it's not just social media. Social media is only one pillar of the 360 marketing plan, okay? And so these are things that I've learned in my professional life as, even now as a digital marketing manager. Like these are things that I've learned on the job. So I'm gonna get into that in a future video, but yeah, that's one thing I wish I knew, is that posting on Instagram is not a marketing strategy, and I wish I knew how to properly market my collections when I launched them the first time. So this next point is it's crazy because I think 2020 and just being in the pandemic has really opened my eyes to this. But my next point, the next thing that I wish I realized before pursuing my business as a fashion designer is that I do not need to follow the industry, okay? The fashion industry, I mean, there's so many industries that are outdated, but the fashion industry, for so long, they've been operating in a certain way. And so when I started my business, I didn't have another model, so I looked at the fashion industry. The fact that they did put out collections, you know, most brands put out collections twice a year, and then, you know, they have minimum of 20 pieces per collection or whatever. Like, I literally looked at the brands that were out there, the big brands, and I tried, as a small designer, I tried to model after those brands. That was the wrong thing to do. I'm gonna tell you what, I actually admire the brand Hanifa, okay? I know you know who Hanifa is and what the brand is, but one thing that I always loved about the brand, and I've been following them since the inception, okay, since 2012, okay? So one thing I loved is that Hanifa does not, she has not done anything that's like industry standard, I would say, from the frequency that she puts out collections to how big the collections are that she puts out. She just did her first fashion show. She has never done a fashion show before, and I just like, she's literally just doing her own thing. She's literally doing her own thing, charting her own path, and she is killing the game, and it is working for her. And I was like, huh, like, you know what I mean? Like, why, who says that the way that the fashion industry is operating is the correct way? But the crazy thing is that a lot of young emerging designers, they kind of get caught up trying to play in this game that isn't, I mean, to be honest, just like wasn't designed for I'm not a big brand, so I can't do the things that the big brand does. So I just wish that like I knew that in the beginning, because I would have saved myself a lot of money. I would have saved myself a lot of time, you guys. Like, so, and I'm gonna just say this, I participated in New York Fashion Week. That was like one of the highlights. Everybody talks about New York Fashion Week. As a designer, that's like a milestone. You make it to New York Fashion Week, you made it, right? When I tell you, I honestly wish that I hadn't. That was one of the worst shows that I've ever participated in. You know what I mean? It's just like I literally wasted so much time, effort, and money to do the thing that I thought was like the thing to do as a designer. So I may or may not get into that story of why it was so bad and why, you know, it just wasn't like the best experience. But my point is, do what works for you. Don't try to follow the trend. Don't try to follow a crowd. Don't follow what society is doing or what the industry is doing. Literally just focus on you and your business, what works for you, what works for your lifestyle, and most importantly, what works for your pockets, okay? That part. The next tip or thing I wish I knew, which I kind of previously alluded to, is that fashion shows are overrated. Fashion shows are overrated. As a fashion designer, you think, oh, I need to do a fashion show. I'm gonna tell you this. Don't do it unless if it makes sense for you. Don't do it. A lot of these shows, and I'm gonna be 100% honest, okay? I've done my fair share of fashion shows. I've done a lot of college shows, so I kind of did like a little mini tour around the DMV, showcasing my brand while I was an undergraduate student. I participated in DC Fashion Week a couple times. I created my own fashion week on my college campus. I did New York Fashion Week. I was actually invited to do Milan Fashion Week and all this other stuff. Guys, when I tell you that as an emerging designer, you have to be extremely careful, because a lot of these fashion shows, like these production agencies, I don't want to say they prey on emerging designers, but they do try to, sell you, oh, like you're gonna get this exposure, and you're gonna get this press, and you're gonna get this, as a way to just get your money so that you can help them put on a show. You know what I mean? And then the benefits that they promise you, they don't deliver. The quality of these shows are trash because they're really just money makers. They try to cram so many different designers in one show. It's not organized. It's a mess. It's a mess. I have yet to be a part of a produced fashion show that I felt like was standard or was, quality, just like a quality show. I've had my fair share of bad shows, but a couple years ago when I participated in a certain show in particular, I made the decision that I'm not doing fashion shows anymore, and the next fashion show that I do will be one produced by myself, okay? I will never pay to be a part of a show unless I'm producing it. So that's just that, you guys. Like, if you feel like, oh, I need to do a show, that's how I'm gonna get my name out there, that's how I'm gonna get my brand out there, there are other ways to market yourself and to get your name out there. Like, sometimes, really do your research to make sure that you're being a part of a quality production. Get some reviews, get some testimonials, like do what you got, do your research. But fashion shows are overrated, and that is not, it's not a necessity to do fashion show as a designer in order to be successful. Next thing is, I wish I knew how to find my niche, or what that even was, that was a thing. You know what I mean? When I first started my clothing brand and people would ask, oh, what type of clothes do you make? I would always say, oh, I can make anything. I could do anything. And it was true. Like, I had the skill set to make anything that I can make whatever I want to make. You know what I mean? Like, I had the skill set to sew whatever I wanted to sew. But I guess I didn't really understand that question, because honestly, when I started my business, I was all over the place. I had a resort collection, I had a streetwear collection, I had business attire, I'm now doing bridal. Like, my brand has literally been all over the place. And when you do that, it's very difficult to establish a specific audience. You know what I mean? So I wish, that's one thing I wish I knew from the gate, because I feel like my efforts, it's like all the effort that you put in to get press or to get, followers or to get all these things, you get a little bit, as opposed to being like focused on one type of audience. So that's just one thing I wish that I knew, is how to find my niche, so that I could really just like work on that one thing that works, that people like, get my name out there so I'm known for that one thing. So I'm better at it now. Obviously, I have transitioned into luxury women's wear. Yes, I make bridal dresses, but my niche is luxury women's wear, okay? So that's what I want to be known for as a luxury women's wear designer. Obviously, one of the biggest money makers as a fashion designer is custom, okay? There is nothing like when that deposit hits your bank account from a custom order, okay? There's so much money in custom. But here's the thing. The thing that I don't like about custom, and the reason why I won't be doing custom anymore, is because I feel like it has turned into less of me designing like original designs and more of me just being a seamstress and making what you want me to make, and there's a difference. I find joy in creating original things, right? I do not find joy in someone bringing me a picture of something that they want me to make for cheaper because they don't want to go to the original designer to get that thing made. You know what I mean? Because at that point, I'm no longer a designer. I'm just a seamstress, and there's no fun in that. There's no joy in that, okay? I realize that I do not like creating things and making things that I just simply don't want to make, that did not come from me. You know what I mean? And that's the difference. There's a difference. I don't know if I've done a video on this one before, but there is a difference between being a seamstress and being a designer. And custom, for me, and honestly, part of it is how I've set my business up. Part of it is the operations, right? My operations have allowed for certain things to happen that I did not like. And so I realized that I didn't like it. And so now I'm making these changes. But the point of it all is that I'm not a fan of custom. I feel like custom for me takes the joy out of designing. And my version of a successful business for me would be to create pieces that I want to create, have them manufactured, and be able to walk down the street and see people wearing my garments, okay? The other issue that I've had with custom is that it is hard to scale. It's hard to scale when, again, your business model is set up so that you are the person behind the sewing machine making. It's like a one-on-one relationship. One-to-one business models, it's just very difficult to scale. Again, I want the type of business model where my clothes can reach the masses, not one-to-one at a time. So that's why I haven't sewed in a year, because I'm just trying to figure out the right way to go about transitioning so that I can get the type of business model that is conducive to my lifestyle and the future of how I see my business. The last thing I wish I knew before pursuing fashion design is how to properly price my garments, okay? Listen, y'all, people have really been, it's like when you're a new designer, people are like, oh, let me go to you, because in their mind, they're thinking, oh, I can get this done for cheap. That's what people think. And there was a period of time when people were getting things from me for cheap because I didn't know how to properly price my garments. I think over time, again, with like burnout and all these other things, me just not being happy, me just, being stuck making something that I didn't want to make, like I have realized over time, okay, I need to be charging more because this is a lot of work. It's a lot of work, okay? Designing, making custom clothes, even just creating collections, like there's just so much that goes into the process of creating a garment, okay? And you want to make sure that you are pricing properly, especially because earlier point, it's expensive. It's expensive, and it's definitely expensive if you do not go about your business the right way. So that is it. Those are the 10 things I wish I knew prior to starting my clothing brand, and actually just becoming a fashion designer in general, okay? So this video by no means is meant to discourage anyone who is interested in really pursuing fashion design as a career. It's really more so a heads up, like before you especially start a business, just make sure that you have the right foundation in place to protect you, to protect your passion, right? To protect your sanity, to protect just your peace. Like, just make sure you have the right foundation in place for you. So I thought this video was fitting to start off the new year because the rest of the videos that I do will be addressing each of these issues, so that if you are a budding fashionpreneur, you'll get some tips so that you don't have to go through the same mistakes that I did. So make sure you subscribe and stay tuned, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.